On Radio 97, we are talking law. This is our second last one for the year. If you have a question perhaps that you would like Despina to answer, we may have to wait till 2023 to get to it, but you can always send it to us. Go to the website radio97.com.au. Right there on the front page, you'll find the links to send us your questions. So do that. Perhaps maybe something might come to you over Christmas. Just go to the website radio97.com.au. All the links are there.
Thank you, Wayno. And now we're talking to our possible buyers or if people... No, we're not. We're talking about body corporate. Let me pause. I read body corporate.
People who live in body corporates.
People who live... Okay. And now we're talking about people who live in body corporate. So if you're a part of that body corporate system, then this segment is for you because Despina has some very interesting real-life cases that happened on the Gold Coast.
I do. So it's a juicy segment. So listen up. I've got a couple of real life cases that have come out of the adjudicator's office. So, and it's all about, pretty much whether bodies corporate are acting reasonably or unreasonably. And it's sort of like the title, body corporates acting unreasonably? Surely not on the Gold Coast. Surely not. And I'm not against bodies corporate, but, there have been lots of cases where they've really taken it to the nth degree in terms of, acting unreasonably. So let's quickly go through these two cases. The first one is actually about, it was using closed circuit TV footage, and security systems. So we're talking CCTV footage in terms of monitoring common property. Okay, and this was in a body corporate called St. Raphael's. Okay, and I believe it is in Queensland, maybe on the Gold Coast, not really sure. But in any event, this was a decision made only in July of this year by the adjudicator. So it's actually very recent. And it concerned CCTV being installed on common property, okay? So the applicant was a lot owner and he believed that the caretaker was using it inappropriately, right, for surveying residents, okay? And your sort of mind might go to pool areas and whatnot. And this person was saying, well, look, there's casual viewing made of the residents. The residents are feeling uncomfortable using the pool and recreation areas. And so 4 lot owners actually requested from the committee approval for dual authentication login for CCTV footage. So it was already installed, but what they were concerned about is that this caretaker had sole power and use of this security system. Why can't we have dual authentication login? Why can't we do that? It was taken to the adjudicator because the committee voted no. We're not going to have dual authentication login processes. So it was really interesting here. The lot owner said the committee failed to act reasonably. So let's see what the adjudicator said here. And remember, the committee must act reasonably at all times. They've got to have rational decisions, and there's got to be evidence-based evidence as part of that rational decision-making process. And each facts are taken, uniquely on their own set of circumstances. So all of the factors are taken into account when they make that decision, or should be. So the adjudicator said, look, it's not for the adjudicator to actually decide if the CCTV footage should have dual authentication. So that was interesting. So they said, look, it's not my decision to do that. That decision really belongs to the body corporate, rightly so, under the Act. But the adjudicator will only intervene if the body corporate arrived at the decision unreasonably in the first place. So that was the difference there that the adjudicator said. And what the adjudicator assessed is, look, the exchange of correspondence that happened between the committee and the lot owners as to various issues and allegations as to the supposed use and misuse of CCTV footage, that was all taken into account by the adjudicator. But ultimately, the adjudicator said, I think the committee acted reasonably, right? With voting no to not having dual authentication login. Okay, and this is the reason why. And ultimately, the evidence was in favour of the caretaker overwhelmingly, and supportive of the vote no. And this is basically the reason why. There was a recent history of criminal activity, right? Burglaries on the bodies corporate, so in the complex. So there was a reason to have this in place. The caretaker had a responsibility anyway in his own agreement to monitor the common property. And then it wasn't really practical to have dual authentication logging, because who was going to have that? Which of the lot owners and which committee members, and practically how are you going to make sure? So if you wanted to log in, was that other person always available?
Exactly.
to be able to log in. So it wasn't very practical. And the other evidence that was brought forward was that the committee actually took the steps to take into consideration what other lot owners thought of first. So they actually went out and approached the lot owners and said, what do you think? So they actually gathered all that information up first before they made their decision. So I thought that that was quite good. So in the end, that particular body corporate was seen to be acting reasonably with not having to put in dual authentication login.
Good.
But anyway, that's the first one. But the second one was a little bit different. So this was involving Diamond Sands. So some people might be aware of Diamond Sands. That's actually at Mermaid Beach on the Gold Coast. And this was a case of interim orders being granted. Actually, this time last year was in December last year, and I think it lasts for a whole 12 months. These interim orders. So it'll be coming around soon. So what happened here is that the body corporate erected signs of common property threatening penalties and handing out tickets for those residents that were parking in visitor car parking. And it's a big controversial issue on the Gold Coast.
All know about it. Yes, we have.
That's right. But what happened here is that the body corporate actually engaged a private company called Pre-Park. Okay, and Pre-Park was a private company that actually was engaged by them to enforce these bylaws and hand out tickets and then enforce unpaid tickets and fines. So that was going a little bit far. So they had, tax invoices of $77 issued, and then they had another $43 issued to lot owners if they didn't pay within 28 days. And all up, there were 17 tickets handed out to owners and occupiers and attaching to cars saying you've parked illegally. That was a lot. Okay, and the question was whether the body corporate had power to actually issue the parking fines to owners and occupiers, and whether they were in breach by actually delegating those powers to a separate company over here called Pre-Park.
Yep.
Right? And it was considered quite an urgent application that had to be made and heard, I should say. And the adjudicator agreed and said, look, the matter's urgent and it's serious. There are serious legal questions to resolve because there's already 17 tickets issued. How many more tickets are going to be issued?
A lot of money.
So, exactly. So if the adjudicator didn't make interim orders, the body corporate would just continue to issue parking tickets to lot owners. That's what it said. And then, of course, owners could be visited by debt collectors. So it could go on and on and on. So the adjudicator said, hang on, this is urgent. We've got to make some orders here. And that's what they did. And it was very stressful for owners and occupiers to think, oh, I'm going to get fine after fine, and I've got a debt collector knocking at my door. So it was a little bit over the top. So the adjudicator wasn't convinced, though, that the issue of the fines itself would even resolve the issue. Right? So people can get fines. They go, oh, well, it's only $77 or $40. I'm not going to pay it. And so they keep parking on visitor car parking. So the interim order was made to restrain the body corporate from issuing any more parking tickets and to refrain the body corporate from taking any action to recover payment of fines. Right? And so the body corporate was ordered to stop engaging Pre-Park, right? And tell them, do not take any further action against lot owners. And ultimately, why was that the case? So the adjudicator ultimately gave more weight to the inconvenience that would have been caused by allowing the body corporate to continue taking this matter on, like continuing this action until final orders were made. In other words, they considered the matter urgent. And that's why they made those interim orders to stop the body corporate from doing what they were doing. So they said that the signs in the car park still stayed in place where it says do not park, sure. And you could still say, yes, someone's breaching if you had evidence of that, of a lot owner breaching a bylaw by parking in visitor car park. But let's stop this process of issuing fines and engaging in a separate company over here to follow up lot owners. And I think that was a really good decision.
Yeah. So does that mean the body corporate, it's in their hands now to then, I guess, deal with that person who keeps breaking the rules?
Yes, and I think now the interim orders were made for 12 months, so it'll be coming up now at the end of this year to see if they can have it heard again to have final orders made and see what's happened in the last 12 months and what's transpired. But I think that was a really good result because it's quite a controversial matter, and the body corporate just went a little bit too far there, I think, and the adjudicator obviously agreed. Yeah, a little bit too far.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Despina, for coming on once again, our second last show of 2022. If anyone does want to get their questions in before our very last show next week, where can they go?
You can email info@prialalegal.com.au, phone the office 55 291 294, but be quick because we are closing in just over 2 weeks and we won't be back till mid-January. So yes, getting quick.
Yes, it is coming around quick. Thank you so much, Despina and Wayne.
And we'll hear from you next week.
See you then.